Hi everyone, today we're looking at Ephesians 5 and 6. I get a lot of questions from teachers about the teacher's manual. A teacher say, am I okay to do some different things? Am I supposed to pretty much just stick to this in the order that it's given? I think this statement from Elder Oaks is really helpful on this. He said, first we adopt, speaking of the teacher manual, the curriculum, then we adapt. If we are thoroughly grounded in the prescribed lesson that we are to give, then we can follow the Spirit to adapt it. And so I think the teacher curriculum gives us some great standards, some great boundaries to look at, some safety, but he also says we can follow the Spirit and make some changes. And so I wanted to just share how I might adapt this particular lesson as I reviewed it and thought what would be the best approach for my students. So I'd highlight, first of all, that this lesson, this is the objective, can help you follow the Savior's example to improve your relationships with others. So there's our guidelines. That's what we're looking for here. But I wanted to highlight that the first thing that it says is possible learning activities. And so this is a possibility. It could be changed. It could be reordered. You might have a different idea. So don't think that this is what I have to do, but it's a possible learning activity. For example, with this one where we're listing members of our family and then we're kind of identifying where we think we are in those relationships, I think that's a pretty good thing, but I don't think I would start with that. I'll tell you why. As we have our bolded principle that we want to identify here, it's based on some verses here in Ephesians 5:22 through 24 that actually I don't feel match the principle very well. It's these verses here. Wives, submit to yourselves to your own husband as unto the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. Those are some interesting verses. I think it could be kind of fun and also helpful if we were to have students read those to start the lesson and say, what makes your eyebrow raise when you read that? What might be potentially problematic with that? And to have students identify that these are some teachings anciently that have been updated or improved by modern prophets. Right here, we can even read this to students to say, it is important to note that Paul's words in these verses were written in the context of the social customs of his era. Prophets and apostles today teach that men are not superior to women and that spouses should be equal partners. And so I think this could be a great way to start a class. And so I might say, hey, let's read these verses, see what makes your spidey senses tingle on those verses, and then identify that this is then, but we're blessed to have modern revelation. We're blessed to have prophets that have received line upon line, and so we know a little bit more about family relationships now than in Paul's day. And so then I'd say, let's use the resources we have. It's mentioned right here, the proclamation of the world. So I'd say we ought to turn there and have students find in there what has been improved upon in our day when we look at marriages and relationships between husbands and wife. And so have them search and find for anything that improves upon what Paul said in Ephesians. And so these two paragraphs could be great for that. But let's give them our modern resources and the best teachings that we have on family relationships. So as we highlight that from the Family Proclamation, I might want to then say, Jesus modeled this. We can see that clearly in the scriptures. And so we've got this activity here where we can look at the following images and match them and just identify how Jesus modeled these principles that modern prophets are teaching, but Jesus was the one that founded them. And so we go there. Now, we are studying the book of Ephesians, and so we want to show what's in there. And so I might, at that point, say, let's look at these verses, Ephesians 6:1 through 4, and see if we can find evidence of how we can treat members of our family, phrases that teaches something. And so this one is a useful one as we're looking at family relationships with children and parents, and maybe even sibling types of relationships. So we can find some useful principles in these verses as well. And then at this point, I might choose to go to the more practical applications, practice being like the Savior. Now we're looking at our situation. So this might be a place where I would go up to the activity at the top, where we write down members of our family, and I treat this family member the way I feel the Savior would want me to treat them, and kind of rank it. And that way I'm starting to look at my family and how I am. And so that's our practice, being like the Savior. We have some videos that could show family relationships and the invitation to follow the Savior's example. At any rate, this is just my version of adaptation. And so I am essentially looking at all the elements of the curriculum, but I'm thinking about how I would teach it and how I'd order it and how it might fit with my particular students. And so hopefully I'm staying grounded in the curriculum, but I'm seeking the Spirit to adapt in a way that gets me more excited about it. I'm thinking about what would be exciting for my students, what they will do, and hopefully having a better experience because of that effort to be deliberate in the lesson. At any rate, I hope this is a helpful practice and just gets your creative juices and inspiration flowing as we seek the best way to bless our students. Thanks for all that you do.